I already hit the record button. Robert.
Oh, hi everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, god damn it.
He's such a kidder, this XJ. Yeah, aren't
I
you?
know.
Yeah, you are.
I am. I am a Neanderthal kid. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nikita Zuev. That's Kaz. I don't know if that's what it is on the screen. That's
On the
extra.
other
It isn't.
side.
It's actually opposite. Hi, I'm Kaz
In any-
Augustine. I'm a
yeah, there we
writer.
go. And then the beautiful British chap there is Robert Gibson, and over there is XJ, the fantastical gaming chair enthusiast.
I'm surprised you didn't get yourself one, Nikki.
What do you mean?
Yeah. You're sitting in what looks like a really normal.
Like, it's just a chair. It's just
it's just a chair. Like, this is like a throne. You should get one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll consider it. I will definitely consider it. If it's good for your back. I know this has nothing to do with the story. Sorry.
So what?
We're rolling off on a tangent.
Before we even started, this is like a great sign. What I really like about it is the armrest because I use the tablet and the mouse and the keyboard a lot, like 8 hours a day. So having an armrest that is on level with the desk is really helps reduce carpal tunnel syndrome and stuff like that. Yeah.
Ergonomic tips with XJ.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's the direction the podcast should go next time.
Really?
No more of this short story nonsense.
Yeah. Just review a chair. That's really what everyone is here for. Robert, can you tell us what's going on with the story today? What are we talking about? What's the name of it?
What is the story? Who
What
is it by? What's it about?
Is there any chance of it starting again? Because I don't think this has been a very good introduction to Lambda 1.
I think it's been the perfect introduction to Lambda 1.
Right. It's just that nobody's going to want to watch it, you see. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. But anyway.
I think it'll be okay. Go on.
Right. All right. Well, Lambda 1 by Colin Kapp, in my view, is a story which takes the familiar science fictional idea of some horrible danger lurking in some other dimension to a new level, because in this story it's not so much what's lurking there as the physical environment itself, which is full of terrors. So it gives us the idea that perhaps the universe we inhabit, the very fabric of the universe we inhabit, is actually something truly frightful, which would drive us insane if we saw it for what it is. That's what makes the story special for me. So over to one of you for more comments.
I'll go. Yeah, I think the brief introduction that Rob did you for what you should do next, which is read it if you haven't read it. Lambda 1 is a fantastic story, and before I go into any deeper analysis or anything like that, to me this is like gold standard science fiction of the day. It has fantastical instruments in it which allow you to engross yourself, and the whole point is that like you have to give yourself into the story. You have to read it and just become engrossed in it, and the more engrossed in it you become, the more fear, trepidation, and you know, overall sort of like feelings you get from the story, the more you give yourself over towards it. It really is like that. The first few pages you may feel like you're kind of fighting to get into the plot and fighting out as to what's going on, but as soon as that click happens and you're in it till the end. It takes you on a ride, doesn't let go. So read it if you didn't read it.
Literally a ride.
Literal ride. The synopsis of the plot itself, if this is your last chance to leave, if you haven't read it, is basically there is this engineer, Porter, who's having some troubles at his own house. His wife left him and stuff, and his good friend Revis, he comes over and tries to have an honest conversation, honest talk with him. And then an emergency goes out at a business where Porter works. And this business runs a fantastical way of transportation using this sort of Tau dimension of sorts, in which ships can basically float through and end up at another location in the world entirely. And from then on, the emergency that happens takes you on a journey through this Tau dimension and what happens through it and how these people perceive it. And very cleverly, Mr. Kapp, the author of the story, he introduces two really interesting minds into the situation. He takes someone who has very strong mental capacity to understand what is going on exactly when it comes to physics and actual, material things that are going on, and someone who can relate to the situation in a more emotional and psychic level, which is the psychologist, Brevis. So Porter and Brevis as a team is a fantastical group of people. To me, the fact that the two of them were together in the story and they pushed the narrative through it all and sort of gave their comments on the experience and had dialogue between each other and even feelings that they shared, it was fantastical. The reveal of who's on board in the first act of the story, which ends the first act basically, is phenomenal. Them going the entire journey that they have to sort of survive in order to get to the damaged ship that is stuck in this
Omega mode.
Omega. I was gonna say Omicron because of the current news. Yeah, Omega.
Mind control.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Omega. I was gonna say a joke there. I'm not gonna. And the the third act where they get to sort of somewhat save the ship, and the reveal at the end that happens, where basically the psychologist figured it out. He's figured out why this has all happened, and he's like, he hasn't even went into the room and he knows exactly what's in it. And he's basically like, this is it. You've got a child, dude. And that's where the story ends. It's beautiful, honestly. 30 pages.
40 pages.
For me, it was
31
30.
pages.
Doesn't matter. The fucking pages, they were great. From the bottom to the top. The first 2 pages, it was a fight. The rest, it was a beautiful river for which I couldn't even stop. I couldn't stop reading. I sat down, read it, then I read it one more time after like a couple of hours and some alcohol. It was great, fantastic. Well, one of the best short stories we had.
How much better was it with alcohol?
Not that much better. The first read through was like mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. What a great story. I think it's one of, because I never read this before. I think this is one of the best discoveries that I've had through this podcast of reading the story. Absolutely incredible. Yeah. There you go.
Well, after that ringing endorsement, what about Cass? What do you think?
Okay. I love science fiction adventure, right? That's why I write space opera, because basically space opera is a science fiction adventure. Yeah. The one overriding thing that struck me about this story is that to me, it suffered from a severe case of first drafter virus. In fact, it suffers from it so much, I actually have a document here that goes down on a page-by-page basis where I go through what I absolutely detest about the story.
Mm-hmm. Tell us.
From grammar to non sequiturs to contradictions, things that are contradicted throughout the story, someone who goes into physics and then turns it upside down. The conclusion was not logical at all because it's saying that the baby has got the will to live, but who cares about the mother? The mother doesn't want the baby to survive. It's the baby that wants to survive, right? And there were just so many inconsistencies, so many questions, so much bad jumps without any kind of explanation between scenes, right? I'm sorry, to me, it was one of the worst stories I've read for a while.
That's fantastical. Tell me more.
Yeah, I've got an entire document here.
Well,
I
no,
guess.
we don't want to look.
I guess we should
Just-
post the document somewhere.
If you want to, I don't want to hear the entire document. I want to hear what you like. You gotta pick. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go for 31 page. You gotta pick like main arguments, and I want to hear them.
Oh, it's kind of like things that don't make sense. Oh, I'm going to I'm on call to Tau. I'm going to go there. It's completely confidential. Nobody knows what goes on. We don't let any of the news come out. Oh, but you can come along. Just don't say anything. Oh, yes. And by the way, he's having this really tense situation. Right, get me this, get me that. Oh, Brevis, feel free to walk around wherever you want, okay? Now, you, get me the transcripts, now! And you're going, seriously? And Brevis goes, I should go stand in that grid where that ship used to be, but it was an experiment. He wasn't brave enough to. I mean, are you kidding me that he would even consider doing this? What kind of an irresponsible person is this? Right?
I mean, he's a man.
Leaped. The car didn't accelerate. The car leaped. Porter gets out of the car before it stops rolling, and yet in the previous sentence, the car has already screeched to a halt. Right? I mean, there are so many also inconsistencies. There are only 4 modes, guys. There are only 4 variables. You don't need 487 phase couplers to be able to cater for 4 different modes. And by the way, it should be an even number because you're dealing with 4 modes, right? So even statistically, it should be an even number.
Okay, so maybe not quite, He doesn't go enough into Colin Kapp didn't go enough into the details of how Tau mechanics work.
But he did. That's the thing. He did go into a lot of detail and it didn't make sense.
No, I meant like it's not a engineering manual on how many couplers should go to which dimension. He doesn't mention that. So, I mean, but carry on.
But he does though. I mean, he is an engineer. He was an engineer. So he very definitely tries to do this in a very engineering type of way. And in fact, the series that he's best known for is about the unknown engineers or something, right? The unorthodox engineers, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then he keeps on mentioning, on other systems, this plays up on what other systems? What other systems? And he repeats it again. And then he talks about something that hasn't happened yet and says it's a legend. Well, I'm sorry, a legend by definition is something that has already happened. You can't have a legend for something that hasn't happened yet. It's a fear, but it's not a legend.
Wait,
right?
What legend is this?
This is where he says there is a legend based on something. It hasn't happened yet that a ship has gone into Omega mode. It's on page 5.
Okay,
it hasn't happened yet.
I think I got what you mean, but I think so in the sense that he was inconsistent when he wrote that.
Yeah.
But the legend did actually happen, I think. Yeah.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't happen.
It did.
No, it didn't. No, it was just a legend that everyone was afraid of. But from Porter's point of view, it hadn't happened yet. And that's the other thing, is that later on, it did happen. So you're going, hold on a sec. On page 5, you said it didn't happen. But then on page 20-something, you said that it did. So which way is it? Right?
Obviously, it did happen because the rest of the story hinges on the fact that the Omega state was a thing.
Right, yes, but on page 5, he says it isn't, though. That's what I'm saying, XJ.
Totally.
There are contradictions within the story itself, right?
What you see here, viewers, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just for a single second, Kaz. I'm very sorry. What you see here,
no,
viewers,
you're not.
A person who was totally... an interesting phenomena which Robert was mentioning a few episodes ago about Robert E. Howard's work when it came to the full novel, Hour of the Dragon. Here we have Kaz, who has completely not fallen into the trap of being engrossed by the story and ignoring everything that doesn't make sense about it. And she has come up with this constructual, very clever and very understandable way of nailing down problems and issues that are going on in the story. Then you have me, who ignored them all, not by my own design, not by my own wishes, but by the fact that the idea that was happening has engrossed me so much that I didn't care about any of the inconsistencies. I just wanted to see what the hell was going on, what the absolute hell was going on, and the emotional resonations that I had with it is something that may not happen to you when you read it, right? But it's very interesting how, if you look at how Kaz perceived it, right, and it doesn't rob away in any way, shape, or form how I felt it or how she felt it from our perspectives, right? But just think about that as you're listening to her feedback of how much that matters to her and how little that mattered to me when I read it. Please go on, Kaz.
Oh, no. So that's pretty much, I mean, obviously I'm looking at it from an editor's perspective, right? Because I just can't help myself. It's a very promising first draft. That's what I would say. If I had to give it a conclusion, I would say it's a promising first draft. There are some concepts in there which are great, right? I think that there's a kernel of a really, really fantastic novella in there, right? But this story is not it, in my opinion.
Best story I've ever read. XJ.
Oh, my turn. Well, I'm gonna have to say that I absolutely love the story. Best that we have read. Conan is rubbish.
No,
Conan is rubbish compared to.
Conan rules.
Conan is
rules.
rubbish compared to this story. Yeah.
Absolutely,
So I've
absolutely
managed to piss both of you off on the extreme opposite end. What an achievement, right?
I've just realized what you've done there. Well done, sir. You have completed your task.
But yeah, I do think if I have to rank Lambda 1 with all of the Conan stories I've read, I would rank Lambda 1 better. So, but first, I will give a nod to Cass in a sense that it's not very well, it obviously hasn't gone through proof reading yet.
Right.
At the very least, because when I was reading through it, I was like, man, this is like, I can see spelling errors, grammar errors. The PDF that I read this in was not very well formatted. I don't know if it carried on over in print, but yeah, it was. It definitely looked rough, which I would not have thought would be acceptable as a published book.
Oh, I ignored the spelling errors. I ignored the spelling and the formatting errors. None of those were part of my criticism. Because sometimes when you do OCR and everything, some things tend to get a bit, you know.
Yes. The point that I was leading to was that once I caught those spelling errors, I was like, okay, everything is probably not going to be as consistent as a well polished story is gonna be. So some of the inconsistencies, like you pointed it out, like if this is a confidential, very secretive a thing, yeah, Brevis, you're not coming in. You know, you'll be stopped at the front gates. A gun is gonna be pointed in your head. You either leave on your own 2 feet, or you leave off your own 2 feet. You know, that's just how the way it is, and I cannot see how a technology as with as serious consequences as that would be so cavalier, athletic,
Right.
outsider.
You gotta think of when this was written. In the
No,
time when.
no, I
when-
did. I did think of when that was
Whoa,
written.
whoa, whoa.
Manhattan Project, Enigma Project, right? Yeah. Absolutely. No, come on. You can't say
You're
you
not,
have to put it in
I'm not talking
context.
about reality. I'm talking about all of the other stuff that was written in this. Like this is like classic trope of like this is really hidden. Anyway, here's all the information. This has happened all of. What are you talking about? This is like science fiction 1950s. They do this in every story.
Yeah,
Like
well-
this is super hidden. Like
Yeah,
nobody can know
yeah.
about it. Anyway, here it is.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Sorry.
yes,
It happens
yes,
all the time.
Yes, my point is Brevis. If Brevis is going to be in the place to see all the shit hitting the fan, he's going to have to jump through a lot more hoops. Like at least some kind of security clearance that allows him in. You know,
Yeah,
but
so if-
not just
if
because
he-
not just because he's a good drinking buddy of the guy.
He could be the industrial psychologist. He could be
He
the
could-
organizational
yeah.
psychologist who goes around, right? I mean, it's a simple fix. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. It was a very simple fix to make that right, but it was lazy writing.
Well,
that
I wouldn't.
didn't-
I
that
wouldn't.
didn't
I
do
wouldn't
it, right?
call it lazy writing. I think your characterization of it the first time round as a first draft is absolutely
A first
on the
draft,
spot.
yeah.
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 Because those are the kind of things that even like me and Nikki, we would iron out after we finish our drafts.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, I mean,
sometimes.
to be nice to us, I don't think we would have such a big inconsistency in the first place. I think we would have the capacity to think about it. But at the same time, I also don't feel like the author was thinking about these things in that way because, again, looking at a lot of science fiction that was written in this time, a lot of them had these inconsistencies. And yeah, to
Wow.
me, it was just like part of the charm. I guess I'm just broken inside. Yeah.
Well, but going past the editorial inconsistencies, what I really a few days before reading Lambda 1, I was actually just listening to a podcast between Lex Friedman and Peter Voigt, and they were talking about the theories of everything. And to me, this was like in the same category of things. It's like there was a period of science fiction where everyone was very caught up with the idea of a grand unified theory, which would allow impossible things like ships with engines that would go faster than the speed of light and stuff like that. You know, like tapping into this unknown part of the universe, as yet unknown part of the universe that connects the very small atomic level stuff to medium level because in physics, like things at the atomic level behave really strangely and very differently from things that happen on the medium level. That's us, you know. And then on the gigantic level, that's like cosmic galaxy. Things become even more different. It's like the smaller you go, the more complex it is. And so it was like a great transition from like the actual nerdy sciencey stuff to like a story that was written off of this thing. And it was also a very it also really reminded me of shows like Event Horizon. Like, you know, you
Oh,
bump
the
up,
movie.
yeah, you bump up against some unknown thing, right? That's a lot of horror science fiction. You bump up against an unknown thing, something on the other side leaked through, and everybody goes mad. I love it. Yeah. And I love Event Horizon too. When I watched that movie, I wasn't quite sure what it was when I sat down in the theaters. Back in the day when I had the time, I would just randomly walk into a show without any expectations. A lot of them turn out disappointing, but also there are some incredible gems. Event Horizon was one of them. I was like,
Sorry.
wow, yeah, and so I'm not 100% sold on the description of the Tau environment, but there are two things about it. Number one, I loved that Colin Kapp tried, because it is so easy to in horror to just describe a thing and then let the imagination of the reader take over, right? But I love that he tackled the challenge. Like, succeed or fail is going to be very dependent on how it's done, but the fact that he tried was very admirable, and it was exactly the same feeling I had when we were reading the Call of Cthulhu, because what's his name, Lovecraft didn't have to go into describe the dimension of the dimensions that Cthulhu lived in. He didn't have to describe Cthulhu himself, but he took on a challenge of actually describing it, and it came out great, you know. And so the description, the actually facing the Tau dimension, I wasn't completely sold on how everything happened. But that sense of horror did come across, and so I would give it A for effort. And the other thing is also like, I mean, it was the attempt that Colin Kapp tried was sufficiently alien enough to keep me hooked. The only criticism I have of his technique was he used this. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but he just like take two things that don't go together and forcibly fit them in, and it was just, and then it's meant to just be like, okay, here's this alien thing where two impossible things coexist, and there you go. I hope it's alien enough. And it was because, and that just reminded me, it wasn't just in the Tau dimension. He through the whole story, he actually does things like that. I remember one particular very memorable part. He was in the car, Porter was in the car, he was driving with Brevis, and Brevis asked him, is it because of the Tau dimension that your relationship broke down with your wife, Julie? And this description, Porter both smiled and scowled at the same time.
Yeah, I was trying to do that. Yeah,
I actually tried to do that. I was like, I can't do it.
Neither of you are Russian. That's why you can't do it.
Right?
Porter's clearly of Russian descent.
Yeah. And then Porter says, "No, damn you!" and then shot a wry smile.
Yeah.
No. And
yeah, so I was like that, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing, Mr. Kapp.
I was on page 4, readers.
Right. Yeah. Before these sullied creatures give you any more of their disgusting opinions, number one, the reason I said this is one of the best stories that we've read on this, as I said in the sentence previously to that statement, was because this is a story I never read before the podcast itself. Now, if God in the Ball was a story that I did not read before this, that would be number one. And the fact that the blasphemy came from XJ's words to say that this was in any way, shape, or form
Conan
above
is just rubbish.
God in the Ball is absolutely not only does it have no mistakes, but it is internally beautifully consistent, and it has way more to offer than this story has in one third of the pages.
Care about a barbarian enough.
Quite a mess.
Look, you're spreading misinformation in this whole current situation, and I'm telling to the viewers, God on the Ball is the best story that we had on the podcast.
No,
Hands down.
no,
There's
this
no,
one.
there's no. That's it. Actually, you're being shut down. You can't say anything else.
Oh,
about this. You've had
I
your
got
time to
cancelled.
talk. You've got your time to talk. It's over. God on the Ball, best story. Rob,
It
how
has
much?
a very Quatermass. I mean, on its positives, it has a very Quatermass feel about it, and I've always enjoyed watching the Quatermass movies, right? And this was very much in that same genre. It had very much that same feel. I could even imagine the same cheesy special effects in my mind while I was reading it, so that was actually quite enjoyable
Before I
about the
hand
story.
Before I hand it over to Rob, though, there is one thing that I need to bring up, and that is in the Tao dimension. I don't know why, but every science fiction writer or people who did science fiction effects, whenever there's an alien environment, it's always cloudy. There's always clouds that you can't see past. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, because it's hard to describe what's past the clouds, dude.
Yeah, and then it's always swirling energies, always
But it was
cloudy.
It was pink this time, which I thought was fabulous.
pink
Because you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
normally get
Pink
pink
is the best
clouds.
color.
Yeah,
Right, you don't
I thought the pink was a very interesting decision to make. It's as if like I'm just trying to think of a color that's really weird. I'm just gonna go with pink.
Rob, over
So-
to you, darling.
Yeah, Robert, how much do you regret the fact that you let us all speak before you?
No, I don't think it's to be regretted. I'm quite interested in what you're saying. I think the
You people.
scope of the disagreement between Kaz and Nikki is in itself something that could be fruitfully discussed. And I have actually previously mentioned this idea that authors get away with things, and that it's that one of the styles of reading something, if you want to do it that way, is to just surrender and let the author get away with everything. I wanted to make a completely different point, though, about this, which is that science fiction, in my limited knowledge anyway, needs a technical term which we don't yet have. I called it matter transmission when I first introduced this story to the team. I said, it's a story of matter transmission gone wrong, but it isn't, is it? It's not beaming something through space and then reconstituting at the other end. It's actually, instead of matter transmission in that sense, it's sidling between molecules, isn't it, at a different vibration rate? And we need a term to describe that mode of transport.
Would it be something like interdimensional travel? Because I mean, that's what it is. It's like you're passing through different states of reality.
Yeah, but dimension conjures up.
I guess, that conjures up like you go to Conan's world or something. Yeah, you're right.
It's not quite right. It's
No,
more intimate than that, isn't it? It's like you're actually occupying the same space that you occupy now, but at a different vibration rate, and that's kind of more spooky in a way than going through different so-called dimensions. So anyway, I just leave that with you. It's something to figure out.
I've got another idea. Atom shift or something like that. Because it's more like you're shifting yourself to another space rather than you being transported through it. It's interesting that you've brought that up. In fact, there's a lot of stuff. All right, honest hour. All of the scientific stuff could have been like, and then we add bananas to the ingredients and we get bread, and it would make as much sense to me as it did in the story.
Banana
I
bread is pretty good.
I understood nothing, and that was great because I understood nothing. It made it sound real. It made it sound like this could happen. Yeah, because I understood nothing of this. Sure, yes.
Let me go to my notes.
No,
it's just
I mean, to be honest,
cavity magnetron. Lol. Yeah.
To be honest, the science makes no sense.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, the science
considering
make no
See,
sense.
but I have considered that the science makes no sense, not because like the author doesn't get it. The way I prescribed it was like, I don't get it. So obviously it makes sense, just not to me because I'm a plebeian. I think that's why it worked for me. It didn't work for you, Kaz.
You see, because if the guy spends so much time going through the science, which he does, he spends pages and pages on it, right?
Yeah.
I expect it to be internally consistent through 30 pages. I really do. I mean, I'm really sorry, right? But you're writing 30 pages. You expect the physics to be, if you're going to spend so much time on the physics, then it behooves you to actually make the stupid thing consistent across within one story. It's not a lot to ask for. Right.
Yeah,
That's all. That's all.
I totally
Yeah.
agree.
It's an incantation. Science in this sort of case has
That's a great thing to bring up, actually, because you could totally take this whole thing and then turn it into a bunch of people with pointy heads chanting over a circle, and then it would be roughly the same thing. Except that I don't think it will quite work as well in a fantasy setting as a science fiction setting.
That's what I'm saying, XJ. That the incantatory science is meant to give the reader a different atmosphere and mood from incantatory magic, but they're both incantatory in the sense that they don't have to they don't have to be the sort of stuff that would get you a degree from a science university.
You don't know that. You don't know that, Rob, because he went on to write The Unorthodox Engineer, so he obviously thought he had an engineering mind.
Oh yeah, well that's different. I mean,
Right.
those stories have to make sense, because that's part of the whole point of the story that they do. That very unusual stories, though, the Unorthodox Engineer's story.
Let's just put it this way. I found a PDF of all of his Unorthodox Engineer stories. Yeah. I didn't download them.
I can recommend those, but they're very different. They're not like this at all. I can recommend in particular The Pen and the Dark, and The Subways of Tazoo, and what's the other one? The Railways Up on Canis. Those three.
Were they edited?
I don't know, but they are stories where it's a bit like a detective story. There's a solution, and you can.
Oh, cool. Okay, I might give them a shot. I walk that back. I walk my statement back. Okay, because of you and because I love you, I shall go and give them a shot. Okay, yes, I'll do that.
Moved. I mean, I'm deeply moved by this, and I hope that you don't get back to me and say you made me waste a lot of time over these stories.
The conversation starts like this.
Those were 2 minutes of my life I'll never get back again, right?
Yeah, it's like, Robert, what the fuck did you make me read?
There's one point I want to make about something that Cass said earlier about the Omega mode didn't happen. It says, I just want to quote from the story: the tech boys call this mystery mode Omega the end. There's a legend that one day a tour vessel is going to actually arrive at a terminal in the Omega mode. Now,
you see, that's right. A legend.
Hold on, let him finish, Kaz. Go on.
The legend is about the arrival. I think that the Omega mode must have been experienced during transit before, but not at actual arrival. I think that's the distinction.
Right. But you see, a legend will arrive, no.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
Right. And he does that in a couple of places. He uses the wrong tense. And and I'm sorry, because I'm a pedantic bitch, it just threw me right the hell out of the story. It really did. And the problem is that I got thrown out of the story every 2 to 3 paragraphs.
Well, I'm pedantic too, but for some reason I was immune to that one.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun, isn't it? Because again,
You are not
Kaz,
pedantic.
yes, I am. Kaz, I was on your side with a lot of stuff when we talked about the
I
Hour of the Dragon, were I not?
think it was just the wrong word. You know, if he had changed legend to spooky
Fear
tales
or superstition.
something like that. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, yeah, go on.
that kind of suppositions does happen a lot in people who had to deal with real emergencies, like the stories that you tell around the campfire kind of thing that is supposed to make you feel better but actually keeps you up at night. Yeah.
Here's something silly that I thought was really good. Right, so the first words of the story is the unkempt shrubs obscure Porter's view from the window. And I immediately in my head said to myself, he's either alone, aka he doesn't have a wife, or he is divorced, or his wife has left him. Because of that detail. I don't know why, but immediately as soon as I read those lines, I'm like, alright, he sucks at gardening, which means he's alone.
Okay, well, here, viewers, you have an insight into Nikki's day-to-day life.
It's true. My bushes are also unkempt. So I don't have a
TMI,
garden.
dude. TMI.
I don't have a garden.
You two are talking about completely different things, and Nikki just walked right into it.
It's all right. I'm okay drowning in it too. So the story. All right. Let's focus on the facts. Let's stop focusing on the stupid ideas of whether the science made sense. All right. It didn't. Fine. Whatever. I don't care. Spelling mistakes. I make them. It's okay. Listen.
Rob is agreeing with you.
He was like, mistakes, right? So the best part of the story is Porter and the Brevis or Eric. I remember him as Eric. So Paul and Eric are the best part of the story because they are actual characters, have actual motivations and actual interesting things to say to one another. Instead of most of the time, when in most other science fiction things, they have the same issues, which is the science doesn't make sense. It's all silly. There's crazy stuff going on that doesn't make a lick of any sort of thing that you could put yourself into it. So they have all of that, and they have crappy characters. But here we have that, and the characters are great. The characters are amazing. Eric and Paul, compared to everything else I've read from the era, they're actual people, and they have conversations. And the fact that Paul, give me a second, Kaz. Paul is like, "Why are you so calm, Eric?" And Eric is like, "I'm a psychologist," and I'm like, "I get it." This is awesome. They're having an actual conversation. No matter how contrived some of them may feel, the fact that they actually feel somewhat human, it really saves Lambda 1 for me. And by the way, what a name, Lambda 1. Awesome. What a short story. I want to put that on a poster, Lambda 1. What did you want to say, Kaz?
I just wanted to say that if Porter is so important, which he is, and he is on call, and he knows more about Tau than anybody else, how come it's Brevis, the psychologist, who keeps on coming up with all the solutions?
Because Brevis is the... Oh, come on. Because he is the thing that sees things from... Hold on. He's the thing that sees things from a different perspective. We know what the engineer thinks already. That's why he is there. He is the mechanism in the story to show you the other side, that things can be perceived from a different way. While Paul is the person who gives us the aesthetics of the science and how things are perceived, Brevis is the person who gives us the solutions because he analyzes what Porter can give him. Also a very important part of the story because he is giving him the information. Brevis is the solution. That is how their dynamic works. That is how their duo is presented in the story. When Paul does whatever he needs to do, in case of describing things, it is Eric who comes up with how to turn this, sentences of information into something that's actually useful. That's their whole dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's very patronizing. I think that if Porter is that good an engineer, then he should know things because that's what it means to be an engineer.
Yeah, but in this particular field, it's, as it says somewhere in the story, I think that the human mind, we were at the level of reality where the human minds and emotions actually affect reality, and mere engineering is not going to solve this fantastically desperate rescue mission. It's not going
That's
to.
right. Come to any engineer and say to them, look, the way you solve warp travel is that you think really hard that it will work, and they'll look at you and be like, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? This is all about physics. You're stupid, right? So,
But
in
then
this
it was
story,
Brevis who suggested the use of Lambda 1, not Paul. So this is before they even get going. This is
doesn't
before
matter.
they even get on the
Listen,
grid.
the whole point of the end of the story is that emotions is what saves the day. Emotions and feeling and understanding them is what saves the day, and that's why the
Yes.
psychologist is important to the story. So
I
whatever
know,
the
but
fuck
I'm
you
talking
think
about
it.
before that. Before they even get to that point. It's Brevis who comes up with all the
I
solutions.
see.
And why? Because Paul is supposed to be the expert who's on call, who, in a really self-pitying way, says, "Oh, why did it have to happen to me? Oh, grow up. It's your fucking
come on,
job. That's why."
I've been in that situation. I'm like sitting there, like I have to
Okay.
send out 7 trucks today.
Age 6. All right?
All right.
Okay.
You're very upset about it. Which is okay, right? I'm very happy about it, and you're very upset about it. These are both emotions okay to feel. At least the way it justifies it to me is that we are immediately shown that Brevis has an open head where he can think outside the box, and Porter, he's stuck in 2 situations. He's stuck in number 1, he's doing this for an employer, which means he's really scared if anything goes wrong. So of course his mind is already limited. And number 2, which is very important.
To conclusions here.
Let me. Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is why it led me to enjoy the story, and it led you to not enjoy the story, because I had these conclusions which I leapt to, and you didn't. So, and it doesn't mean that the story is good or bad. It just means how we interpreted the story is just different, right? So the writing pushed me to that direction, and it doesn't mean that the writing wanted me to push to that, to think of these assumptions. Maybe I made them on my own. Maybe it's a master stroke of genius of Mr. Kapp who put me into this sort of railroad way of looking at it. Whatever, it doesn't matter actually if it was his intention or not. But my way of thinking was of it like the guy is under huge stress. He's like, my wife is also on the ship. Fuck. Like, so from then on, as soon as he knows this information, to me, he's useless. So all he can provide is information. As soon as he knows this piece of evidence that his wife is on the ship, he is completely and utterly, like, bad at making any sort of decisions. And that's where Brevis comes in, because he's the one who saves him. Porter is important because his information, the things that he can provide, is something that the psychologist cannot. He can't. He doesn't have the knowledge. He doesn't have the know-how. He doesn't understand it. What he can understand, though, is how he feels emotionally, and that's what saves the day. And whether or not it works for you.
I actually thought that Eric's character was. When I was reading it, I was like raising my eyebrow. I was like, really? Yeah. And the reason I kind of like I go like is because for some reason, science fiction writers from that era places a great deal of shall we say weight on psychology. It's very strange to me. So you see in Nightfall, Isaac Asimov places a great deal of importance to the psychologist, and actually Foundation, which he later went on to write a whole series on, is so heavily based on psychology. And you see this thing pop up every now and then where some science writer from that era would place a great deal of weight onto psychology, and I don't understand why.
You don't get it.
I don't know what the fascination is.
It was the new hip science.
Honestly. Could be. Could be. I'm not too, shall we say, familiar with the historical background of all that, but I did notice this thing, and I thought, yeah, I am not that sure that Eric would be the best person to deal with this. The archetype I would have thought would make a lot more sense would be someone who's very used to disasters, like a firefighter. Or
I mean, a psychologist is very used to
Willis.
this. I don't know if you've ever been to a psychologist, but a psychologist is very used to disasters. They see it every single day inside people's minds. So,
So you have been?
yes, I've seen
Okay.
a psychologist.
Okay.
I
Well,
have a degree in psychology.
After starting to work with you on the book, I have to see a psychologist. XJ. To be honest, right? Here's a quick way to fix this. He's a psychic, right? Make it into like, he's got the power of the mind, and now he gets, because that's where that's where the trope from psychologist to the powerful magic, sort of, quote unquote, in the science fiction kind of leapt to. It started as like psychologists and people of science, and then it kind of slowly, gradually transformed into psychics, people who feel with their mind, feel emotions, feel empowerment. You can see it in like basically 70s and 80s.
I mean,
it transformed from being from science to like super powerful weaponry.
To me, this is all like it was just a device. To me, it was just a device that Colin Kapp used to enable some creative decision in his writing. That's all it is. I just did not think that the I just thought like the way it had the playoffs between Porter and Brevis should have underwent some refining. But as I said, I was like, yeah, this looks very rough. But okay. Right from the start, I was like, this looks very rough. It looks like it needs a proofreader at least, or an editor. Yeah.
I thought Porter didn't step up. It would have been a much more even relationship if Porter had managed to put all of the pieces together before they left on Lambda 1.
To me, that wasn't a big issue to me.
And Brevis put it together after, right? I thought Porter, considering what he's responsible for, he was a blithering idiot, actually. And so I thought, my God, come on.
So I've been in situations where that kind of intense stress can make a person stop functioning. So, okay, fair enough. I didn't think it was a big deal that Porter didn't step up.
I thought he was probably getting paid enough to step up. And I'm sure he was going through enough drills to step up.
Obviously, he's not a strong character.
Well, he's an engineer, damn it.
I don't have the same kind of.
I see what's happening here. I think Kaz, because she has some sort of like a feeling towards these people, or maybe she's somewhere related to a engineer. She just feels like she got shit on because Porter sucks.
That sucked. Yeah, that's right.
I had no issue with Porter not being as strong a character as he should, as Kaz think he should be. I don't have an issue with an outsider like Eric being stronger. I just wonder why it's always a psychologist. Well, not always, but I'm just like outsized weight.
Come Porter's next performance evaluation, and he'll be getting
he will get a
good
docking.
too.
He will have a docking in his head.
But I think he was nervous.
I think Rob had something that you. Rob, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just
Please,
going
sweetie.
to say that as regards blithering idiocy, I think the story shows that the whole technological setup is one collective blithering idiot. It reminds me of Heinlein's story "Blow Ups Happen," where atomic energy is portrayed as an enormous trap in which society has begun to rely on it, and it's completely mad. I'm not saying that I do believe this about atomic energy, but certainly in the Heinlein story, atomic power is far too dangerous to have a society rely on it, and yet once you've got it, you've got to keep on with it. And it's like this with the tour business. The people who made the decisions to set up this transport network without really understanding the physics involved properly were totally mad. But it's the sort of thing human society.
Actually, that's true.
So,
that's actually a great point
that
I
is a
completely
good
forgot
point.
about. Because there's points in the story at the very beginning where he's like, we like pray to God. that this thing comes in and no one's dead. Like, we do this every time. Like, everyone is super nervous and they quit their job pretty quickly. And another point that I wanted to bring up, that Cass started on, where he was like, this is super secret. And then he tells him everything. This is like human condition. We love to do this. We're like, I can't tell you. Anyway, here's what it is. We do this all the time in normal life, even when it's like when we're little boys and girls and there's a secret in the school. Whatever, actually, just let me finish your point.
If your job depends on it, no, you're not going to. I can tell you that right away.
Manhattan Project.
All right, so you're a little kid at a fucking I don't know, kindergarten, and this girl told you, don't tell anybody, but I have 3 nipples. What are you gonna do? You'd be like, this is a secret. Don't tell anybody, but everybody, she's got 3 nipples. That's what you're gonna do. So I think that Porter is super relatable. I can't tell you this anyway.
No, he's not relatable to me. It's not relatable.
All right.
That part
Actually,
is just not relatable to me at all. I mean, I'm in a line of work where I have to be very careful about my NDAs, and I keep them. Otherwise, I'm not gonna have a job. I'm not going to. I would be if I break the NDA. That reputation sticks to a person like a skunk stench. You're not gonna So if a person who is in that industry knowingly and that he has to carry that secrecy, they will.
You've never been a child before, XJ? I mean, you've never told a secret?
Porter is not a child.
No, but I don't need to relate to him that he's okay. I think you misunderstood my meaning. If you've never sold someone else's secret, even though it was like a stupid secret, like they've got 1 more pencil than everybody else because they took it from the teacher or something, I don't know. If that never happened to you, then fair enough. But in my life, it has happened where someone told me some secret, quote unquote, like, oh, I really like this boy, like, this stuff has kind of happened. So to me, it just made me laugh. Of course, under circumstances of serious paperwork and documents, XJ, when you're put under this duress that you can't tell anybody, of course you need to keep.
If he had been gossiping about anything other than his work, sure, but it's his work.
It's a story, dude. Chill. All right, Robert. So, how much do you love the story and why? I haven't really said anything besides.
That's such a loaded question.
Yeah, it's one of my every few decades. I read it again, sort of stories. I first of all read it when I was quite tiny. I couldn't have been less than 8 because I think it first came out in 1962, but. And no, I wouldn't have been less than 11 actually, because this collection of stories from the old British magazine New Worlds,
New Worlds,
is 1965, and I probably got it round about then. And it's got a sort of mythopoeic power to it, Lambda 1. It doesn't really matter that the inconsistencies. I must admit I didn't notice them myself, although as soon as Kaz points them out, I notice them. But the other defect I noticed when I reread it just a few days ago was that there are some sentences which are rather overwritten.
Yes, I've got a list of those.
That doesn't matter, because once it's got underneath your radar, when you've read something as a youngster, then it's with you for life. So
Well, it's like Lensman and E.E. Docksmith. I mean, I know it's not going to set the world on fire. I know we can cringe and everything like that. I'm completely with you. But, E.E. Docksmith to me is such an intrinsic part of my childhood that basically everybody else, like Randall Garrett, right, did this fantastic takeoff of EE, of the Lensman series, with the strawberries. And it was utterly brilliant. And it was spot on, right? And it brought up every single ridiculous thing about the Lensman series. But I loved the satirical piece, and I still love the novel. So I get where you're coming from.
It's actually a great point, really. But well, there are some books that I read when I was very young, and I had the exact same feeling that Rob had. Although going back to them as an adult, I'm like, man, what is this nonsense?
I think that's the Star Wars prequels to me, especially number 2. The first time I saw number 2, like Attack of the Clones. Yeah, Attack of the Clones. When I saw it, the version I saw in theaters has never been released to DVD. It seems, because the version I saw in theaters was amazing, and then every time I watched it again, I'm like, "Where's all the stuff I liked?" It's so funny.
Exactly. I was like, because there was one. I remember one series of books that was a total page turner for me. I could not put it down when I was a kid.
What was it?
I just kept reading till 5 a.m. in the morning and have to get up at 6 a.m. next day for school. So I literally did not sleep. That kind of feeling, right? And it was the Kingdoms series by Raymond E. Feist.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then I went back to read it decades later, as an adult. And I was like, aside from Magician Apprentice and Magician Master, which is the first 2 novels, the rest were total crap. I was like, how did I ever get engrossed in this?
I was like that with the Bulgariad by David Eddings.
I
know where you're coming from.
Bulgariad, I never took to, because it was way too obvious that that David Eddings got to the point where he built the characters up to this point where he couldn't give them any more challenges. Basically a power creep, as we call it in gaming.
That was the story, because I loved Star Wars when I was a kid. I loved Star Wars, and the only person who actually knew how to write Star Wars books, aka just like writing books, was Timothy Zahn. I'm sorry, everybody else, you did your best, but Timothy Zahn wrote actual books that you can read. And the best one that he wrote was called Dark Force Rising. I can even sort of remember the book cover that it had. It was like the Millennium Falcon escaping from a bunch of TIE fighters and this fucking huge Star Destroyer, and then there's pictures of Han, Leia, and of course this Luke with his lightsaber and stuff. And after I read that, I was like, so when are they gonna make a movie out of it? Like this, so yes, of course, as a child, there's a lot of, because I'm sure if I went now and read it again, I'm sure I wouldn't be as impressed by the book as I was when I was a child. But the nostalgia of it is just so powerful.
Yeah, it's a little bit different from what Rob is saying, though. Now that I think about it, Rob is saying that the next few times he read it, it was still powerful. So that's the difference for Lambda 1 and Raymond E. Feist and David Eddings.
I've never reread Dark Force Rising, so maybe I should read it again and tell you if it's like Lambda 1 or not. To me, Lambda 1, even with all of I acknowledge all of the faults that Kaz has said and all of the criticisms that actually had, and the overwordiness that Rob has spoke about, and still, for some reason, and I can't identify it within my human brain just at this second, but there's something about the story, there's some core which felt to me so human that it made me relate to it. in ways that I did not relate to a lot of other stories that I read for the first time in this on this podcast. It really did something for me. It had a feeling of, when I finished it, I had a moment. I can't describe it. It's this situation where you finished the book or finished the short story, and then you've got 5 minutes that just go by and you think about it for a moment. It just goes with you. It doesn't go away. It lingers. It stays with you. And I haven't had that feeling for a long while. Lost Hearts was the last time on the podcast where I sort of felt this way. But Lambda 1 did it even more.
Well, for what it's worth, I am with Nikki on that. Like I said, it's the best story ever. Conan is just trash, man. Rubbish.
No, I want to say that when I reread it a few days ago, there was one powerful episode I'd completely forgotten about, around about the middle of the story, where they're trying to get Captain Dantor to move the ship to a safe location so that when the Rorsch generator collapses, it won't actually blow up half a continent. Well, it probably would anyway, but it'll minimize the damage. And Captain Dantor is not having any of this. He says, get lost. I'm not moving the ship. As long as I stay here, you've got to do your damnness to get us out. I thought that was really effective, a very effective scene.
That was entrapment. That was entrapment, because they spent more than a page talking about the poor bugger's alcoholism, right? And then they said, move the ship, and the captain went, bugger off. And then they said, well, he's a drunk, so let's go replace him. And I thought, oh, hold on a sec. Only a few pages before you said it didn't matter, that all of the captains, all of these people have their own idiosyncrasies. And now you're using that as an excuse to lob him off and get the first officer back on again.
Well,
so
welcome to the corporate world.
So to me, that was like sheer entrapment. We will encourage you. You can be an alcoholic, but that means it gives us probable cause if we want to boot you out.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
I'm with Rob
awesome.
on this one. I'm with Rob on this one. That conflict, that standoff was amazing.
I liked it as well, and I think the fact what you said, Kaz. It makes so much sense that they would do that. That sounds like this is a corporation.
It does sound. It
Yeah.
does sound like
This is what
HR.
I'm saying, that the whole technology is lousy, because that's why they in the end had to rely on drunk captains. The whole enterprise is wrong-headed from start.
It's falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
it's this
you're
idea
right.
is that if you can if it's possible to do something, you should go ahead and do it, and that's the Faustian culture for you,
That's exactly.
Yeah,
You know
okay.
what? That's
Yes.
beautiful. That's right.
Yes.
Because we can do
I'll
it, we
give that.
do it. That's beautiful.
I'll pay that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're past an hour. Shows how much we all love this story. You love it too, Cass. Don't lie. I know you do. Okay, any last words?
It was a first drink with potential.
The first
Sorry,
10
Rob.
minutes, yeah.
All right. Do we have any last words, Cass? I know you love the story.
Before any last words that go on, there is a challenge.
Oh, that's
that you've been
right.
escaping, XJ, and you thought you'd escape it tonight by being like, "Any last words, guys?" I don't know what I'm doing. You're like, "What caught you?"
Okay. Tell me what the challenge is.
So, for those of you who have never seen the challenge before, I mean, we've done it 3 times, but it's 2,500 words from a sentence or a couple of sentences that we give to the author. And here is what we have come up with for you, XJ. I will read it out because I love to see you suffer. One final trial awaits the hero before he marries. A conversation with her father, the devil.
Can you run that by me again?
One final trial awaits the hero before he marries. A conversation with her father, the devil. And I've written it down in the chat too. So
That's right. So you can cogitate.
Okay. Sure.
You can mull it over.
Okay.
Good luck.
Mhm.
As far as Lambda 1, The title, although I butchered it severely, is fantastic. I think I've said it before, like in the middle of the podcast, but I'll say it again. Lambda 1 as a title, to me, as soon as I saw it in the list of the stories, I was like, I need to read this story. What a title! Why is it called that way? I need to know. And the story didn't disappoint. It was like an experimental ship in the story, right, which they used in order to get to the X weird dimension. And overall, through all the faults, I loved it. It was a great story for me. There you go. That's all I have to say.
A first draft with potential. That's it. Yeah.
All right, man. Cool. And that's
what are you going to say about it?
yeah. Conan is trash compared to it.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to say that.
What are you expecting me to say?
So you have to say something about the story. Don't trash talk something else. You have to say something about.
It's not possible for
It's a great story. I loved it more than I love Conan. That's it. End of sentence.
All right. Now that we've heard enough from this one, Robert, is there
what do you have to
anything?
say?
Yeah. Is there anything you want to impasse?
Just one of my favorites, and as I said before, every few decades I'll read it again.
Yeah. And what other endorsement can you get for a story? Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, here's we come to the end of the podcast. Everybody have fun. Take care, and like and subscribe and all that jazz.
Yeah. Tell your parents to watch this.
Sure. Okay. Later.
Bye-bye.